Hello, I'm Glenda Fish. I'm the Curriculum Coordinator for Trent ESL, that is Trent University ESL. And today we're going to talk about English for academic purposes, and in particular, what it means to be an independent learner in an English for academic purposes setting, and why that's important.
Thank you so much, Glenda. Let's start off with just a brief discussion of what learner independence is and why Trent ESL regards it as an important target.
So by learner independence, what we mean is that the learner is able to take some responsibility for their own learning. Certainly in the ESL classroom or even in degree studies, there will be professors or teachers who are guiding the learner, but for ESL learners in particular, there's a necessity for them to also be able to direct their own learning in some ways. And so, for example, you asked, why is it important? Well, especially for ESL learners, when they reach degree studies, they may well have to learn other things besides just the course content. They may have to learn vocabulary that regular, shall we say, Canadian students wouldn't have to learn. They may have to learn some grammatical points or be able to check their own writing and grammar in ways that Canadian students wouldn't necessarily have to. And they may have to do some extra studying in terms of understanding cultural features that Canadian students would just already know. So those are some of the reasons why becoming an independent learner is really important. I think that another thing, though, that we often think about when we're teaching EAP is that ESL students or EAP students, students who are learning English, in some respects, they'll always be, can I say, maybe just a little bit behind Canadian students, or typical Canadian students, in the sense that I often say to students, their language may always be just a little bit funny. And even they acknowledge that themselves. They know that their language isn't quite like a native speaker's. And secondly, they don't necessarily have all the cultural knowledge that a Canadian student is going to bring to the classroom. They'll have other cultural knowledge, but they don't necessarily have Canadian cultural knowledge. And so in some ways, they're going to be a little bit behind or have some shortcomings. And so what we try to do in our EAP classes is to swing the balance so that their skills, their academic skills and their study skills are actually stronger than your typical Canadian kids' skills, so that they can sort of compensate for maybe their weaknesses in other areas. And so again, that speaks to them, to ESL students needing to be independent learners.
Thank you very much. When in the program do instructors begin sort of trying to foster this type of learner independence in our students?
I think it starts at pretty early stages. For example, we might encourage students to keep vocabulary journals or of words that they hear or of words that they come across that are unfamiliar to them and that they think that they should learn. Another thing that we do, of course, is we teach the writing process. And so we're teaching students from a very early point in the program the whole idea of maybe brainstorming and drafts and editing and so on. And we hope that that just becomes part of the students' repertoire of skills that then they will carry on into degree studies. And then I think, gradually as students move through the program and as we focus a little more, shall we say, on EAP skills, then we kind of ramp up the independent learning. And so a little later in the program, where we really call it sort of the EAP levels, Then we introduce, for example, writing conferences. And in writing conferences, students have a weekly half-hour appointment with an instructor to talk about their own learning needs. Most often the subject of discussion is their writing assignments, but it could be other things as well. And students are expected to come to those appointments with their own questions. The teacher won't guide them through the appointment. It's up to the student to come to the appointment equipped with their own questions about things that they want to learn, or things that are important to guide them through the process of working on their assignments. So that's another sort of step in the process. And then I suppose, as we work through the program, then by the final level, we even start doing some things like reflective learning presentations, where at the conclusion of each assignment, a group of students in the class will lead the whole class through reflecting on their process of working on that assignment. So what things worked for them as they worked on that assignment, what things didn't work so well as they worked on that assignment, and what skills can they take forward with them into degree studies as they work on assignments again. And so that is all sort of feeding into this whole idea of helping students to become independent learners.
You mentioned earlier on the idea of vocabulary journals, and that raises what I think of as a pretty common understanding of learner independence, namely with respect to vocabulary acquisition, and in particular this skill of being able to deduce or infer the meaning of new vocabulary items encountered through context. What about other learner independence with respect to other types of objectives, for example, grammar,
Mm-hmm.
or preparing students for listening?
So for grammar, for example, in the upper levels in particular, we really start moving away from instructor correction, or at least, instructor correction, to the instructor pointing out the nature of the error, or pointing out the error but not necessarily correcting it. And also we start sort of workshopping grammar and writing, so that students have the opportunity to edit each other's writing, to edit their own writing, but in a guided way. And so we hope that as students learn to do that in a guided way, that they will be able to carry these skills forward. And also, we hope that in the upper levels, students will become aware of their personal grammar weaknesses. Maybe they will become aware that, when I'm writing in test situations, my subject-verb agreements go out the window. I mess that one up all the time. And so then they know, okay, that's my personal weakness. And so then when they get into degree studies, and maybe when they're writing in exam situations, then they know, this is something I have to go back and check, or I have to be aware of this as I'm writing, because that's my personal weakness. So that might be the kind of thing that we would do in grammar. And then I think in terms of the other skills, I think that our process is that we walk students through the process. We walk students through the writing process, so that hopefully by the end of the program it is just second nature to them, and they can just move forward using that process when they're in regular studies. Likewise with listening, we hope that we have walked students through the process of pre-reading strategies, actual note-taking skills, and what are different ways, methods of taking notes, and then post-listening skills. What do you do after the lecture? So we hope that students have done this enough that by the time they get into degree studies, they are able to just walk forward with those skills, and they're automatic. Similar things can be said for reading or presentation skills.
Thank you. Now, part of being an effective independent learner in undergraduate context is being able to take advantage of the support systems that exist and that are in place in various departments across campus. And so it seems sort of paradoxically that part of helping a student become independent is also showing them or teaching them or building habits about how to, or how and where and when to depend on those structures as well. How does Trent ESL help foster that kind of awareness in our students?
So I guess one thing that I mentioned a moment ago is our writing conferences. And one reason that we've built that into the program is because we have available for students in degree studies appointments with academic skills instructors. And so we hope that what we're doing is that we're building this habit in our students of, oh, I have an assignment due in ESL, so I will talk to it about my writing instructor. And then when they get into degree studies, oh, I have an assignment due for this professor in this course, so now I will make an appointment to go see an academic skills instructor to talk about my progress on that assignment. So that's one thing that we do. Another thing that we